I haven't seen those since.
It's been a long time, old friend.
Thank you. Thank you for everything.
The truck died with a violent shudder right in front of the black iron gates. Rain hammered the hood, steam hissed out, and in the back seat, 10-year-old Lily clutched her chest and whispered, "Dad, I can't breathe." Then the mansion gates opened, and the billionaire standing under the chandelier glow took one look at the dog tags hanging from the soaked father's neck and went completely pale. If stories like this hit you somewhere deep, subscribe, like the video, and tell me where you're watching from before we begin. Because this one doesn't just unfold, it tears something open, and it stays with you long after the final line. Eli Carter slammed the dead steering wheel with the heel of his hand. Come on, not now." The engine answered with nothing. Lily's breathing turned sharp and thin in the back seat. She was trying to be brave, the way kids do when they know panic will make things worse. Her inhaler was empty. He'd taken one extra delivery that night so he could stop by the 24-hour pharmacy after. One extra $42. That was what stood between them and having enough gas, enough groceries, enough anything. And now the truck had given out in front of a mansion that looked like it belonged on the other side of the world. Security guards ran out first, broad men in black raincoats, faces hard and annoyed. "You can't stop here," one of them snapped, smacking the old truck's hood like Eli had parked there on purpose. "My daughter's having an asthma attack," Eli shouted back. "Call a medic." The guard leaned down, saw the torn seat covers, the duct-taped dashboard, the rust around the door frame, and his expression changed into something uglier. "There's a private event. Move the vehicle." Eli stared at him, not sure if he'd heard right. "It doesn't move," he said through his teeth. "That's the problem." In the back seat, Lily bent forward, coughing so hard her whole body shook. That should have ended the argument. It didn't. The second guard opened Eli's door and grabbed his arm. "Sir, step out of the vehicle." Eli reacted on instinct. His hand twisted, shoulder turned, and in half a second the man was pinned against the truck with his own wrist bent back. The movement was clean. Military clean. The guards froze. So did Eli. Because for one awful second, he wasn't outside a mansion in Connecticut. He was back in smoke and screaming metal and radio static and a desert night that never really left him. He released the guard immediately and raised both hands. "I'm not looking for trouble," he said, breathing hard. "I'm looking for help." That was when the front doors of the mansion opened. Light spilled down the stone steps. Music floated out behind it. Laughter, crystal, money. And then a man stepped into the rain under the cover of a black umbrella held by someone else. Tall, silver at the temples, tailored tuxedo. The kind of face magazines called powerful and television called inspiring. Adrian Blackwood, former decorated Army officer, current real estate titan, national hero, owner of the mansion. He would have walked right past. Then his eyes dropped to the chain around Eli's neck. 2 dog tags glinted under the lightning. Adrian stopped so suddenly the man holding the umbrella nearly walked into him. He took one step closer, then another. His face lost all color. "No," he whispered. Eli felt cold spread under his skin, because he knew that voice. He knew that face, younger, meaner, covered in dust and command. Adrian stared at the tags again, jaw trembling. "Owen's tag," he said. The rain kept falling. The guards looked from one man to the other, confused. Eli slowly touched the tags at his chest. One was his. The other was not. You remember it now? Eli asked. Adrian looked up at him like he'd seen a ghost claw its way out of a grave. Get the child inside, Adrian barked. The change in him was instant, terrifying. The guards moved without another word. One reached for Lily, but Eli stepped in front of the truck door. I carry her. Adrian nodded once. So Eli lifted his daughter into his arms and followed the man who had once destroyed his life into the mansion that had no right to exist. Inside, everything felt too soft, too warm. The marble floors gleamed. Paintings worth more than Eli's entire lifetime lined the walls. People in gowns and tuxedos turned to stare as rainwater dripped from Eli's boots and Lily buried her face in his neck. A doctor appeared so quickly, it was obvious this kind of house didn't wait for ambulances. Within minutes, Lily was on a cream-colored sofa in a private study, breathing through a nebulizer mask while a nurse checked her pulse. Eli stood beside her, soaked, dirty, exhausted, saying nothing. Adrian Blackwood closed the study doors. For a long moment, neither man spoke. Lily looked between them through watery eyes. Dad, she whispered. Who is that? Eli didn't take his eyes off Adrian. A man who owes us. The doctor glanced up, sensing something old and dangerous in the room, then quietly ushered Lily and the nurse into the adjoining sitting area for privacy. The door clicked shut. Adrian stared at the dog tag again. You kept it. Eli gave a humorless laugh. Funny thing about dead men. They leave things behind. Adrian swallowed. 12 years disappeared in one terrible silence. You were reported dead after Kandahar, Adrian said finally. No, Eli replied. I was reported convenient. That one hit. Adrian looked away first. He walked to the bar cart, poured a drink, then seemed to think better of it and set the glass down untouched. I looked for you. Eli almost smiled at that. Almost. No, you didn't, he said. If you had, you would have found the trailer park in Bridgeport, the one with the leaking roof, the one where my wife was dying while I worked double shifts because you signed a lie and took away every benefit I earned. Adrian's face tightened. Eli stepped closer. You want to know the first time I wore Owen's tag in public? He asked. At her funeral. The words landed like a bullet. Adrian shut his eyes. And just like that, the room wasn't big enough for the past. It had been a night mission in Helmand. Fire from the ridge. Radios dead. A bad intel call that turned into a slaughter in less than a minute. Owen Blackwood, Adrian's younger brother, had been hit in the leg and trapped behind a blown-out transport. Private Mason Weller, yes, the senator's son, panicked, fired where he shouldn't have fired, and lit their own position up like a beacon. Eli had gone back for Owen. Adrian had ordered retreat. Then, when it was over and the bodies were counted, the report somehow said Staff Sergeant Eli Carter disobeyed orders, jeopardized the squad, and caused the fatal chain of events. Adrian survived. Mason Weller disappeared behind his father's lawyers. And Eli became the man everyone pointed to when they wanted the tragedy simplified. By the time he got home, his name was Ash. By the time he fought it, nobody powerful wanted the truth. By the time his wife Rachel got sick, the system had already decided he wasn't worth saving. Adrian turned toward him now with a look that was not quite shame and not quite fear. I didn't know about Rachel. Eli's voice sharpened. That is the problem with men like you. You only don't know things after your signature ruins somebody. From the other room, Lily coughed, and Eli turned instantly. That was all Adrian needed to see. The weakness, the leverage, the reason Eli had survived everything and still hadn't broken. "Is she all you have?" Adrian asked quietly. Eli looked back with something close to murder in his eyes. "She's enough." Adrian nodded once, as if he had expected that answer. Then he said the one thing Eli never imagined he would hear. "I can fix this." Eli actually laughed. It came out cracked and tired and full of hatred. "You think this is a flat tire and a donation check?"
"No," Adrian said. "I think it's 12 years too late. But I can still help your daughter. Medical care, school, a home. Tonight." Eli went still. There it was. Not an apology, a transaction. Adrian reached into his jacket and took out a card. "There are people here tonight," he said carefully. "Important people. I need this evening to remain calm. Stay until the storm passes. Let my staff take care of Lily. Then we talk numbers." "Numbers. That's not what I meant." "It's exactly what you meant." The study door cracked open, and Lily peeked through, nebulizer mask hanging loose around her neck. She looked small in that room. Too small. "Dad?" she asked softly. "Can we go home?" The question cut deeper than any accusation. Because home was a truck that barely ran, and an apartment where the power had been shut off twice that winter. Eli crossed the room immediately and knelt in front of her. "Hey," he said, brushing wet hair from her forehead. "You breathing better?" She nodded, then looked at Adrian again. "He looks like he knows you." Adrian opened his mouth. Eli answered first. "He does." Lily searched his face. Kids always know when grown-ups are lying, even if they don't know what about. "Is he bad?" The room went silent. Adrian didn't move. Eli looked at the man who had buried him alive without ever touching a shovel. Then he said, "He used to be." Adrian flinched like the truth had weight. A woman in a dark blue evening gown appeared in the doorway then, elegant but tense, as if she had already heard enough to understand that the polished world outside the room was balancing on glass. "Adrian," she said carefully, "the senator is asking for you." So there it was. Senator Weller was in the house. The father of the coward who had walked away clean while Owen bled in the sand. Adrian's wife looked from him to Eli, then to the tags. Her face changed. Not confusion. Recognition. "You're Eli Carter," she said. Eli stood slowly. "And you are?" "Claire Blackwood, the wife." She looked at Adrian with a quiet horror that said one thing clearly. Some part of her had known there was more to the story all along. "The man from the letters," she whispered. Adrian's head snapped toward her. "Claire." But it was too late. Eli's heart kicked once, hard. "What letters?" Claire looked at her husband, then back at Eli. "The ones he never sent." A new silence opened, the kind that swallows air. Adrian moved first. "This is not the time." Claire's voice sharpened. "Then when was the time, Adrian? Before his wife died? Before his daughter ended up in an emergency in our driveway?"
Lily looked between them, breathing shallow but steady now, clutching the blanket the nurse had draped over her. Eli's pulse thundered in his ears. "What letters?" he asked again. Claire hesitated. Then she said, "He wrote to you for years. Apologies, confessions. I found them locked in his desk. He never mailed one." Adrian stepped forward. "Enough!" But Eli was already looking at him differently. Not because the letters fixed anything, because they proved something worse. Adrian had known. Every day, every year, he had known, and still chosen silence. The music from the ballroom swelled as a burst of applause rolled through the mansion. Adrian rubbed a hand over his face like a man suddenly aging in public. "Claire, please leave us." "No." His jaw tightened. "I'm asking you. And I'm done protecting things I don't respect." That line landed so hard, even Eli felt it. Adrian turned to Eli, stripped now of half the command he used to wear like armor. "There are people in that ballroom whose names reach places you don't understand." Eli took a step closer. "Try me." Adrian lowered his voice. "Mason Weller is here tonight." For a second, even the walls seemed to lean in. Eli's vision narrowed. "Here?" "Yes." 12 years disappeared. He saw again the flash of wild panic on a 19-year-old face. The wrong shot. Owen falling. Adrian yelling retreat. Eli refusing. The blood on his hands that wasn't his. "Mason doesn't tell the story publicly," Adrian went on. "He has a family now, a reputation. The senator won't let the truth ruin his son," Eli finished. "That what you mean?" Adrian didn't answer. He didn't have to. Lily stood there, hearing every word she was too young to carry. "Dad," she said quietly. "What truth?" Eli looked at her and realized with a sick twist in his stomach that the moment he had delayed for years had arrived in a stranger's mansion under a chandelier. He crouched in front of her again. His voice softened. "A long time ago, some men lied about something that happened in the army." "About you?" "Yes." "Did Mom know?" That one nearly broke him. He looked down. Rachel's face came back in fragments. Hospital light, pale lips. Her hand squeezing his harder when the bills arrived than when the pain did. "Yes," he said. She knew. Lily swallowed. "Did she believe you?" Eli looked up at his daughter, eyes glassy, and answered with the simplest truth he had left. "She was the last person who never asked if I was lying." Lily's face crumpled a little. And for one brutal second, Eli saw Rachel in her so clearly he almost couldn't breathe. Claire covered her mouth. Even Adrian looked away. Then, from the hall, a man's voice boomed with forced cheer. "Adrian, you hiding from your own party?" Senator Weller. The room tightened instantly. Adrian stepped to the door, but it opened before he reached it. The senator entered with a thick smile and dead eyes, followed by a younger man in an expensive suit, carrying himself like someone who had been shielded from consequence his entire life. Mason. Older now, broader, clean haircut, wedding ring. The fear was still there, though. Eli saw it the second their eyes met. Mason stopped breathing for a beat. "No way," he whispered. The senator looked from Adrian to Eli to the tags, and then he smiled again, but less warmly. "Well," he said, "some ghosts do survive." Lily moved closer to Eli's leg. Claire stiffened. "You need to leave." The senator ignored her. He looked at Eli as if examining a stain that had somehow returned to the carpet. "I was told you were dead, Sergeant." "I was told your son was a man," Eli replied. Mason's face flushed. Adrian snapped, "Enough!" But the damage was already spreading. The senator folded his hands in front of him. "Adrian, you have a ballroom full of donors and cameras. I suggest you solve this before someone turns old confusion into a circus." Old confusion. That was how powerful people described buried truth. Eli's fists clenched. The senator's eyes dropped to Lily. "And I'd especially hate for a child to be dragged through ugly stories she won't understand." Eli took one step forward. "Don't you look at her." The room changed again. The senator smiled, but Mason didn't. Mason looked sick. Not guilty enough to speak, just weak enough to remember. Adrian moved between them. "That's enough for tonight," he said to Eli quietly. "Take the help. Leave this here." Eli stared at him in disbelief. "There it is," he said. "The brave Captain Blackwood. Same battlefield, different carpet." The senator gave Adrian one cold look and walked out, Mason following fast. But Mason hesitated at the door. He turned back once, eyes locked on Owen's tag around Eli's neck. Then he left without a word. Claire let out a breath she seemed to have held for years. Adrian stood motionless. Then he said, very quietly, "You have no idea what they can do." Eli's laugh this time had nothing human in it. "What else is new?" He wanted to leave. He really did. Take Lily, get back in the dead truck. Call a tow he couldn't afford. Go home and keep surviving the way people survive when nobody comes for them. But then Claire said, "There's something you need to see." Adrian turned sharply. "Claire, no." She ignored him. "Come with me," she told Eli. Adrian caught her wrist. Not violently, but hard enough to say he was still, somewhere inside, the man who believed control could save him. Claire pulled free. Not tonight. She led Eli down a hallway lined with family portraits, so expensive they looked arrogant. Lily followed, holding his hand. At the end of the corridor, Claire opened Adrian's private office. Inside, she crossed to a locked drawer, entered a code, and took out a bundle of sealed envelopes tied with a faded black ribbon. Every one had Eli's name on it. Years of it. Some were stained, creased, rewritten. The top letter had no stamp because it had never gone anywhere. Eli stared at them, unable to move. Claire's voice shook. "I found these 3 years ago. He said he needed time." Eli looked at Adrian, who had followed them in and now stood in the doorway with the face of a condemned man. "Time for what?" Eli asked. Adrian answered for himself. "To choose the truth." Eli picked up the top envelope and opened it. The handwriting was neat. Military neat. "I watched you carry my brother while I carried my rank." The line blurred in Eli's vision. He looked up slowly. Adrian's eyes were red now, finally, but Eli had no tenderness left for late tears. "You wrote this," Eli said, "and still let my daughter grow up on food stamps." Adrian didn't defend himself, because there was no defense. Then Lily noticed something else in the drawer. A voice recorder. Small. Old. "Dad," she said. "What's that?" Claire looked at Adrian. Adrian closed his eyes. Eli picked it up. "What is this?" Before the signal died. Owen called Adrian. The room went ice cold. Eli turned to Adrian so slowly it felt dangerous. "You had proof." Adrian's mouth opened, but no sound came out at first. Finally, he said, "I couldn't bury my brother's voice, but you buried me." That was it. That was the wound in one sentence. Lily looked frightened now. Not of Eli, of the size of something she could feel but not fully understand. Eli held the recorder in one hand, the letters in the other, and for the first time all night, Adrian Blackwood actually looked smaller than the room around him. Then the mansion lights flickered. A burst of applause erupted downstairs. The charity presentation had started. Claire stepped closer. "If that recording says what I think it says, they can't stop the truth anymore." Adrian looked at the floor. "They can still try." And right on cue, a security guard appeared at the office door. Not one Eli had seen outside. This one was older, scar along the jaw, eyes deadened by habit.
Graves, former staff sergeant, same unit, same night. He took one look at Eli and muttered, "Should have known." Eli's body locked. Graves smiled without warmth. "Still hard to kill." Claire looked at Adrian. "You brought him back?" Adrian's silence was answer enough. Graves nodded toward the ballroom. "Senator says the problem leaves now." Eli slipped the recorder into his jacket. "No." Graves' eyes moved to Lily, and that one look told Eli everything. The game had changed. He stepped in front of his daughter. Graves shrugged. "Then it gets ugly." Eli had spent 12 years avoiding fights he knew he could win, because losing after winning had become the story of his life. But some men only understand one language. "Lily," he said softly, never taking his eyes off Graves. "Go stand by Claire." She obeyed instantly. Graves reached first. Big mistake. Eli sidestepped, drove an elbow into Graves' throat, shoved him into the desk, and the office exploded into motion. Adrian yelled something. Claire pulled Lily back. The lamp crashed. The letters scattered like white birds. Graves was strong, heavier than before, and meaner. He slammed Eli into the shelves, reached for Eli's jacket, tried to rip the recorder free. They crashed through the office door into the hallway. People at the end of the corridor screamed. Graves headbutted Eli hard enough to split his eyebrow. Blood ran hot into his eye. Then Graves hissed, "You really think truth beats power?" Eli answered by driving him into the wall and whispering back, "I think fathers get dangerous when you threaten their daughters." Graves reached into his coat. Gun. Everything froze. Claire screamed. Adrian lunged instinctively, knocking Graves' arm up as the shot went off into the ceiling. Lily cried out. Guests in the hallway scattered in panic. Graves tore free and ran. For half a second, nobody moved. Then Eli turned. Lily was gone. The sound that came out of him wasn't a word. It was terror. He spun toward the grand staircase just as he caught a glimpse of a small blue sweater disappearing below, and Graves' hand clamped over a child's shoulder. "Lily!" He flew down the stairs. The gala dissolved into chaos. Donors stumbled away. Glass shattered. A string quartet stopped mid-note. At the center of the ballroom, Senator Weller stood at the podium, stunned and furious. Graves dragged Lily toward the service corridor near the rear of the house. She kicked, fought, bit his hand. "Dad!" Eli chased them through the kitchen, through crashing trays and shouting staff, out into the storm-soaked rear terrace
where the wind hit like a slap. Graves shoved Lily toward the old greenhouse at the edge of the property and turned, gun shaking in his hand. "Back up!" Eli stopped only because Lily was sobbing 2 feet from that muzzle. Rain poured between them. The greenhouse windows rattled in the wind. Graves' voice cracked. "Drop the recorder." Eli slowly pulled it from his jacket. Behind Graves, the mansion doors banged open. Adrian appeared, soaked instantly, followed by Mason Weller, white-faced, panicked, finally dragged by conscience farther than comfort. Senator Weller stayed under the doorway. Of course he did. Graves screamed, "Drop it!" Lily was crying now, trying to suck in air through fear and rain and asthma and terror. Eli saw it immediately. The beginning of the wheeze. He lowered his voice. "Let her go. This is between us." "It was always between people above you," Graves spat. And there it was, the whole rotten creed. Mason suddenly shouted over the storm, "Stop!" Everyone looked at him. He stumbled forward, drenched, shaking. Not brave, just cornered by the truth he had outrun too long. "It was me," he choked out. "That night, it was me." The senator roared, "Mason!" But Mason kept going, voice breaking. "I fired the flare in the wrong direction. Owen got hit because of me. Eli went back for him. Captain Blackwood told us to retreat. Eli didn't run. I did." The rain seemed to stop. Not literally, but in the way a moment can grow so large it silences weather. Graves looked at the senator. The senator's face hardened into something monstrous. And Eli understood at once. Graves hadn't come out here to scare him. He'd come to finish what had been unfinished for 12 years. "Enough," the senator said coldly. Graves raised the gun again. Then Adrian stepped between it and Lily. The shot cracked. Adrian jerked hard, hand flying to his side. Lily screamed. Eli moved. He hit Graves like a truck, both men crashing through the greenhouse door in a storm of shattered glass and metal. Inside, among overturned pots and mud and rainwater, they fought like men who had no future after the next 10 seconds. Graves punched. Eli answered. Graves reached for the gun. Eli slammed his wrist against a steel table until the weapon clattered away. Then Graves snarled, "They'll still bury you." Eli grabbed him by the collar, blood and rain mixing down his face. Not this time. He drove Graves into the cracked glass wall so hard it gave way and dumped the man outside in a heap. By the time Eli stumbled back out, security from the house had finally arrived, too late to matter, right on time to arrest the wrong century. On the stone path, Adrian Blackwood was on one knee, one hand over the blood spreading through his tuxedo. Lily was in Claire's arms, gasping. Eli ran to her first, always her first. He pulled the rescue inhaler from the greenhouse shelf box Claire had somehow grabbed on the way out, thank God, and got Lily breathing again in trembling, ugly, precious pulls. She clung to his neck afterward and whispered, "I thought he was going to take me away." Eli held her so tightly she squeaked. "No one takes you," he said into her hair. "No one." Then he looked up. Adrian was still kneeling in the rain, pale, bleeding, staring at Owen's tag around Eli's neck. For the first time all night, there was no performance left in him. No billionaire, No hero, no officer. Just a man finally out of places to hide. "Do it," Adrian said hoarsely. Eli stood slowly, Lily in one arm, the recorder in the other. The ballroom doors were open. Guests clustered inside. Phones were out. Cameras rolling. Senator Weller was being held by his own panic more than by anyone's hands. Adrian looked toward the crowd, then back at Eli. "End it." Eli could have walked away. He could have taken the money, the treatment, the truck, the easy lie with a softer bed. He looked at Lily, at the child who had almost learned tonight that power wins because good men get tired. Then he walked back into the ballroom. So did Adrian. Blood on his shirt, rain on his face, ghost at his shoulder. The room went dead quiet. Senator Weller tried to step forward, but Mason blocked him. That was new. That was beautiful. Adrian reached the podium first. His hand shook as he took the microphone. "My name," he said, voice rough and carrying, "is Adrian Blackwood. And for 12 years, I have allowed a lie to live because I was too cowardly to kill it." The room held its breath. He looked at Eli, then at the cameras. "Staff Sergeant Eli Carter did not abandon anyone. He disobeyed my retreat order because I gave the wrong order. He went back to save my brother Owen after Private Mason Weller's mistake exposed their position. Eli acted with courage. I acted with fear. And I signed a report that destroyed his name to protect mine, and others more powerful than me." Somebody gasped. Somebody else started crying. The senator shouted, "This is insane!" Adrian didn't even look at him. He just stepped aside. And Eli walked up. Not as the wrecked man in the truck, not as the file someone buried, as himself. He placed the old recorder on the podium and pressed play. Static. Then Owen's voice, weak but unmistakable. "If Adrian hears this, Eli came back for me. He didn't run. Tell Mom I know he tried." The room shattered. Not with noise, with truth. Claire cried openly now. Mason broke completely, covering his face. The senator looked suddenly old. And Eli stood there with Lily by his side, hearing a dead man return his life in one trembling sentence. He didn't smile. He didn't grandstand. He just looked at the crowd and said, "My daughter deserves to know her father's name was never something to be ashamed of." That was the line that broke the room. Because everybody knew this had stopped being about medals or politics or even war. It was about what a child inherits when the world lies about the person who loves her most. Weeks later, the headlines were brutal. Blackwood confession stuns donor gala. Senator under investigation. Army reopens decorated soldier case. Adrian survived the shooting. Mason testified. Graves took a deal and named names. The official correction came slower than justice should, but it came. Eli Carter's discharge was overturned. His rank was restored. His benefits were reinstated. A folded flag and a formal letter arrived for Owen's family, with the truth that should have traveled years ago. And one bright morning, at a small ceremony with no chandeliers and no lies, an army colonel pinned a medal on Eli's jacket, while Lily stood in the front row, trying not to cry and failing completely. Afterward, she touched the medal and whispered, "Mom would have loved this." Eli looked at the sky for a second, just long enough to keep himself together. "Yeah," he said, She would have told me not to stand so stiff. Lily laughed through tears. Then she saw the second dog tag in his hand. Owens? Eli nodded. Across the lot, Adrian stood alone beside a black car. Thinner than before, wound healing, reputation gone. He hadn't asked for forgiveness. Maybe that was the first honest thing he'd ever done. Eli walked over to him. For a second, neither man spoke. Then Eli held out the tag. Adrian stared at it, but didn't take it. "You keep it," he said quietly. Eli frowned. Adrian swallowed. "My brother died with your name in his mouth, not mine. I don't get to wear what you carried." Eli looked at him for a long time. Then he closed his fist around the tag and gave one short nod. Not forgiveness, not friendship, just truth standing where a lie used to be. That evening, Eli and Lily drove home in a different truck. Not new, not fancy, just dependable. Halfway there, Lily looked out the window and said, "Dad?" "Yeah?" "When the truck broke down that night, do you think it was bad luck?" Eli smiled faintly, eyes on the road. "No," he said. "I think some roads break you down exactly where the truth is waiting." Lily leaned her head against the seat and closed her eyes. And as the sun dropped behind them, Eli touched the tags at his chest, breathed in, and for the first time in 12 years, the weight around his neck didn't feel like punishment. It felt like proof. Some debts are paid with money. The real ones are paid with truth. If you were Lily, do you think you could ever forgive Adrian Blackwood?